Bruce Springsteen was 45 minutes into the show when he looked into the third row and saw his father's face. Not the face he had known for most of his life, the closed, weathered face of a man who had never understood what his son was doing or why it mattered, but a different face, one he had not seen before, one that looked like something had opened in it that had always been shut. He changed the next 4 songs on the spot. He did not tell the band what he was doing or why. He just played differently, for one person, in a way he has never been able to fully explain in any interview since. It was August 22nd, 1996, at the Meadowlands Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Springsteen was touring solo, the Ghost of Tom Joad tour, a stripped-down acoustic run that was as far from the stadium spectacle of the Born in the USA era as he had ever taken his performances. No E Street Band, no production, just a man, a guitar, a stool, and a stage lit with the particular economy of someone who has decided that the music is enough. Doug Springsteen was 73 years old, and he had not been to one of his son's concerts in over a decade. The relationship between Bruce Springsteen and his father had been the subject of his songs for 30 years, without either of them ever fully discussing it directly. It was there in Adam Raised a Cain, which Bruce had written about the inheritance of fathers and sons, the way certain things pass between generations, whether anyone wants them to or not. It was there in Independence Day, in My Father's House, in the specific emotional territory of loss and distance, and the love that exists alongside distance without resolving it. Doug Springsteen was not a man who attended concerts or listened to albums or read interviews. He was not a man who processed the world through art. He was a man who had worked in factories and driven buses and done what was required and come home and not always had much left over after that. He had not always been kind to his son in the years when kindness would have mattered most. Springsteen has said this, carefully and without bitterness, in the writing and interviews where he has talked about his father. Doug had been hard in the specific way of men who were hard, because nothing in their lives had given them much practice at being otherwise. The relationship had improved as both men aged, as distance and success and time softened what proximity and struggle had made difficult. By the mid-90s, they were close in a way they had not been when Bruce was young, close in the way that is possible between fathers and sons, when both parties have lived long enough to understand the other one better. But Doug had not come to a show. There had always been a reason, a competing obligation, or a health issue, or simply the distance between a man who spent his evenings watching television and an arena concert that started at 8 and ran until 11. The reason he came in August 1996 was Bruce's sister Pam. Pam Springsteen had watched her father's health declining through the spring and summer. Nothing dramatic, no single diagnosis, just the accumulation of small deteriorations that come with being 73 and having spent decades in industrial work. She had a feeling, not based on any specific medical evidence, but rooted in the particular attentiveness of a daughter who was paying close attention, that there were not unlimited opportunities remaining. She had called Bruce and told him this in June. She had said that she thought their father should see a show, one of the solo shows, and that she thought it should be soon. Bruce had agreed immediately. Pam arranged it without making it into something larger than it needed to be, which was the only way Doug Springsteen would have accepted it. She told him she had tickets for the Meadowlands in August, that she and her husband would drive him, that it was not a big thing, just a show. Doug said he wasn't sure he was up for an arena. Pam said it wasn't that kind of show. Doug said he'd think about it. Then, in the way of a man who has learned to say yes to things that his children arrange for him, he said, "All right." He did not tell Bruce he was coming. Pam did not tell Bruce he was coming. It was the kind of surprise that requires the complicity of everyone involved and the ignorance of the one person it is intended for. Springsteen walked out to a solo spotlight and a quiet crowd and spent the first 45 minutes doing what the Ghost of Tom Joad tour asked of him, creating stillness in large rooms, asking people who had come for entertainment to accept something closer to a conversation. He was good at this by 1996. He had been on the road long enough with this material to know how to hold a room with very little. He was midway through a song when he glanced into the third row and saw his father. Doug Springsteen was sitting very straight, the way he always sat, with his hands on his knees and his jaw set and his eyes on the stage. He was wearing a blue button-down shirt. He looked older than the last time Bruce had seen him, and smaller, in the way that parents become smaller as their children age. And he was watching his son perform with an expression that Bruce could not immediately name because he had not seen it before. He has described it in different ways in the few times he has talked about this night. He has called it attention. He has called it recognition. Once, in a long interview in 2005, he said the closest he could come was that his father looked like a man who was understanding something he had known for a long time, but had never previously understood. Bruce changed the next song. He did not announce it. He simply moved into different material. Older songs. Songs from the early albums that Doug might have heard at some point over the years. Songs that were not on the Ghost of Tom Joad set list, but that felt, in that moment, necessary. He moved through the set with the third row as his fixed point, not staring, not making it obvious, but orienting himself toward his father the way you orient yourself toward something you are afraid of losing if you look away. Between songs, he talked. The Ghost of Tom Joad shows were known for the spoken passages between songs, the stories and introductions that gave the music context. On this night, the stories he told were different from the ones on the set list. They were stories about New Jersey, about growing up, about his father, obliquely, without naming him. The way you can talk about someone in a room without saying their name and have them know you are talking about them. Doug Springsteen knew. After the show, Bruce found him in the lobby. The crowd was filtering out around them, and Doug was standing with Pam and her husband. And when Bruce reached them, Doug put out his hand, the way he always greeted his son, with a handshake rather than an embrace, because that was who Doug was, and Bruce had long ago made his peace with it. But he held on for a few seconds longer than usual, and he said, while he was still holding on, something that Bruce has quoted in various forms across the years since. The exact words vary slightly in the retelling, but what Doug said, essentially, was this: I didn't always understand it, but I understand now that it matters. 8 months later, Doug Springsteen was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He died in April 1998, at the age of 74. Springsteen has spoken about that August night in New Jersey, the way people speak about things they did not know were important until they were over. He has said it was the show he played for one person. He has said that every other show he has played since has carried something of that night in it. The knowledge that any show, for any person in the audience, might be the last one they ever see, and that this is not a reason for sadness, but for a certain kind of care, a quality of presence that the music deserves, and the audience deserves, and the moment deserves. Because you never know which moment is the one that someone will carry with them for the rest of their life. Pam Springsteen has not spoken publicly about that evening in any detail. What she has said, in the one brief mention she has made of it, is that she is glad she made the call to Bruce in June, that she is glad she pushed their father to go, that she knew something without being able to say what she knew, and that she acted on it, and that this is the only advice she has ever given anyone who asked her about it. She said, "If you have the feeling that there isn't much time, don't wait to be certain. You won't be certain. Just go." Doug Springsteen is buried in New Jersey. Bruce visits the grave. He does not talk about what he does there, or how often, or what he thinks about. What he has said, in the writing and the interviews, and the occasional quiet moment between songs when he tells the crowd something true about himself, is that his father is in the music. Not in a mystical way, not in a way that requires any particular belief system, but in the plain and accurate sense that the music was built, in part, out of the distance between them and the love that existed inside that distance, and that both of those things were real, and neither of them has gone anywhere. He has said that the August night at the Meadowlands was the night his father finally heard the music the way Bruce had always hoped he would hear it, and that it turned out to be enough, that it turned out to be more than enough. He came, Springsteen said once, in an interview in 2002, when a journalist asked him about his father. He came to the show, and he stayed all the way to the end, and he told me he understood. That's everything. That's the whole thing. He paused for a long moment. I didn't know it was the last time. You never know. That's why you have to play every show like it matters. Because for someone out there, it does. For someone out there, it always does. There is a recording of that night. Not an official recording. Springsteen has never released a recording of the Meadowlands show from August 22, 1996, and has not indicated any intention to do so. But the Ghost of Tom Joad tour was recorded by fans at dozens of venues. The way Springsteen shows have always been recorded by the people who follow them closely enough to bring equipment, and a bootleg recording of the August 22nd show exists and circulates among collectors in the specific underground ecosystem where these things have always circulated. The people who know about the show and have heard the recording say that it is immediately audible, the difference between the first 45 minutes and what comes after. The first half of the show is precise and controlled, a master working within a form he has spent months perfecting. The second half is something else, still precise, still controlled, but with a quality of openness in it that is harder to describe than to hear. The songs breathe differently. The pauses are longer. The spoken passages between songs are more personal than usual, more willing to go somewhere uncertain. Listeners who know the context of the evening hear Doug Springsteen in those second 45 minutes without being told he is there. People who don't know the context simply say, "It is one of the best recordings from the tour," without being able to say exactly why. Music does that. It holds things that the circumstances of its creation put into it, and it gives them back to whoever listens carefully enough, without requiring that the listener know the full story. The full story helps, but the music works without it. Bruce Springsteen has played thousands of concerts across a career that spans more than 5 decades. He has played for presidents and for 12 people in a shelter gymnasium and for stadiums of 100,000. He has played the same songs hundreds of times and found, or tried to find, something true in each performance that makes it worth the doing. He has said that the August night at the Meadowlands was the show he played for one person. But he has also said, and this is the part that perhaps matters more, that it taught him something he has tried to carry into every show since. That every night there is someone in the audience for whom this specific night is the night. The one they will remember. The one they drove 2 hours for, or flew across the country for, or were brought to by a sister who had a feeling about time running out. The one they needed, for reasons that have nothing to do with the performer, and everything to do with where they are in their own life, their own relationships, their own running out of time. He cannot know who that person is on any given night. He cannot find them in the crowd the way he found his father in the 3rd row on August 22nd, 1996. But he can play as if they are there. He can bring the quality of presence that the Ghost of Tom Joad tour asked of him. The stripped down, nothing to hide, just the music presence that his father saw and finally understood after 30 years. He can play every show like it matters, because it does. For someone out there, it always does. Pam Springsteen made one phone call in June 1996. She did not know it would be the last opportunity. She acted as if it might be, and it was. And her brother played the best show of his life for their father in the 3rd row of the Meadowlands Arena. And Doug Springsteen held his son's hand for a few seconds longer than usual afterward, and said he understood. 8 months later came the diagnosis. 20 months after that came the end. But August 22nd came first. And it was enough. Bruce Springsteen has said so, in the interviews and the writing, and the occasional quiet moment between songs when he tells the truth about himself. He has said it was everything. He has said it was the whole thing. The people who heard the recording without knowing the story already knew. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Share this with your father or your son, or anyone you have been meaning to tell something before the time is gone. Have you ever had a moment with a parent that you didn't know would be the last of its kind until it was over? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to ring the notification bell for more stories about the moments that remind us why music exists.